Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Ann Ganguza, and I'd like to welcome you all to the second Voiceover Rates and Digital Ad Reform, aka VO Radar, Roundtable. We're so happy you could all join us here today, and it's a privilege and an honor for myself to be here. I'd like to start off the session by telling you a little bit about the history of the Roundtable. My esteemed colleague and co-host, Mr. Dave Courvoisier, and I started the group after seeing a number of conversations, an alarming number of conversations, and rising concerns regarding the degradation of voiceover compensation rates. So we wanted to help and decided the best way that we could do that was to open up a dialogue about fair rates with experienced industry professionals such as yourself, and to commit to informing and educating the community about fair rates. So our first roundtable was held in July, and our panel included Marilyn Wisner, Jeffrey Umberger, Matt Kalrick, Paul Strickwerda, Christina Malizia, and John Coleman. And it was so successful, we shot that all over social media. It was so successful that we decided to continue the discussion on a monthly basis. So we truly feel that if we can provide these open discussions and develop a continuing education initiative for the community, that we're going to be able to make an impact and in educating a strong community that knows how to ask for fair rates. So I'd like to thank Dave Courvoisier and World Voices Organization for sponsoring this opportunity. And I'd like to thank our panel today for taking the time to talk with us. And please join me in welcoming our panel of guests. Let's see. Let's start with talent coach, demo producer, and WoVO member, J. Michael Collins.
Yeah.
The voice, yes, the voice of Porky Pig and many, many other roles. Coach and union advocate, Mr. Bob Bergen.
Yay!
Hey!
Coach, director, producer for promos and commercials in LA and WoVO member, Joyce Castellanos.
Hello.
Voiceover talent, WoVO vice president, Mr. Peter Bishop.
Yay!
Award-winning voiceover talent coach and everybody's favorite Oscar live announcer, Miss Randy Thomas, among other things, by the way.
Hi, Randy.
VO artist specializing in animation character voices, VO casting, directing, and VO classes and privates, MJ Lallo. Voiceover talent, WoVO member Sean Caldwell, and of course, my co-host, Mr. Dave Courvoisier. I'm super excited about this session today, so I'm going to turn it right over to Dave to start the conversation.
Right, and
thanks, everybody.
This may take you back to grade school, but really the best way to get the floor is to raise your hand on camera so we can see that you want to talk, or just start shouting really loud. That's what J. Michael Collins does, and it seems to work for him. So, but seriously, I would like to start off with Sean Caldwell. I don't know if all of you know Sean, but he's a great guy. He's a wonderful voiceover talent. And earlier this year, he conducted a survey of voiceover rates from some of his esteemed colleagues, all of them professionals. And the returns on this survey were really interesting. And Sean, you have the floor. Show us what you got.
Yeah, so it was pretty neat. It was at FAF Camp, and I have a survey that I'll be able to give you guys a link for those that are watching later. And I'll try to do a screen share here now. Let me just see if it'll work. There we go. So is that coming up to you guys?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Right. Okay, so this is just kind of the portion that was the visual portion, and really it started with the exact same conversation that you guys are talking with in terms of people saying, hey, you know, there's gigs that I used to do that were $300 and $500 gigs, and I'm getting clients all of a sudden that are offering me like, you know, $110 and saying, well, you know, that's the new rate. Is that really what's happening? To which I'd say, no. You know, I mean, there are always people that will be trying to test your rates out. And let's be honest, if we could, you know, we all need to go get our car fixed from time to time. And if I need to go get the brakes fixed on some foreign car, it might be $300 or $400. But if there really was a guy that was out there that would do it for $25, you know, and had a decent reputation, we'd probably go. Well, the issue becomes that there are not many good voiceover talents out there that are doing rates that are a quarter of what everybody on this call would want. And so part of it is an education process in terms of, hey, people need to know kind of these are the ranges that you want to be at if you're a professional voiceover talent. If you happen to be, you know, a plumber during the day that has a USB microphone and you want to make an extra $25 or $50 on the side, that's not the audience that we're talking to, right? These are people that they're dedicating their career to, they're investing in their career. So here were some of the rates that we talked about. So the way that the survey happened is I sent it out to 20 top voiceover talents that I estimate were all making between $60,000 and $600,000. These are people that are doing it full time. They're negotiating their own rates all the time. They're very comfortable negotiating their rates. Some of them are experts in terms of commercial VO. Some are in the promo area. Some are network television. Some are documentaries. There's IVR people. There's e-learning. A lot of audiobook people. And it was a fascinating look, especially for me. I kind of specialize in just 2 or 3 areas. Some of the areas that I didn't know much about, it was interesting. There were some that paid more than I thought they would, and there were some, like audiobooks, for instance, that I'm thinking, wow, I guess I really don't have a lot of interest in doing audiobooks. And, I know there's people that really love to do it, but man, it is a huge time commitment, and the rates have not been that great. So let me hop into it. I asked people to consider this in their mind, how they set their rate structure, and then to think about if they could charge higher rates, what would that be? I could charge higher rates if, and you guys all may have answers to that. I don't know. But that's it for people that are watching. Here were some of the answers for radio spots. For a local radio spot, the average was about $200. And I don't know if you guys can see my mouse as I move it along.
Yep.
All right, so here were all the different responses that people gave. You can see on the low side, 121, on the high side, and I'm willing to bet this 330 is a union person. So you can kind of see the range, and then you can also see the quartiles and the medians and all that good stuff. So you want to be in this blue box, somewhere in that, for a local radio spot. Now, obviously, a local radio spot in Toledo is going to be different than a local radio spot in Los Angeles, yes? So those kind of things need to be taken into account. For a regional radio spot, that would be something that's on the area of, let's say Charlotte, Raleigh, and those kind of things. 328 was the average. Again, you can see this whole link later on, so people don't need to write down the data, but that's kind of the range for their radio spot. Part 2 for a national radio spot averaged $833. Last year's survey, that averaged closer to, I think, $1,100. It's not that rates have fallen by 30%. It's that the different people that took the survey this year had different numbers, and so $800 is the number that came out. But you can see there's a lot of $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 answers there.
Is this a 13-week run?
So I didn't get into all the different specifics in terms of, is it union, is it non-union, and so maybe next time we need to do that and talk about these are for union spots, these are not. For a radio tag, average $75. Mm-hmm. Television spots, local cable TV. So this is something that might run, I'm in the Tampa area, might run on Bright House Networks or Verizon Fios, averaged $182. I have conversations with other talent, say, well, my local Comcast, I'm in a tiny market and they pay $50 a spot, but I'll only come in if they have 5 spots gang together. Cool, great. Local broadcast TV, $276. Again, depends on the market that you're in. Chicago is going to pay a lot more than New Orleans. Television, part 2, national TV spot averaged $1,600. A TV tag averaged $161. Cable in-show narration, the people that have done that averaged about $1,500 per episode for common shows. Is that 30 minutes? Is that 60 minutes? I didn't get into granular trying to divide that because I didn't think we'd have enough responses on all of that. But $2,500 is also a very fair number for a show. If it's a really popular show, more than that. National cable promo, $250 to $500 is very common. If Weather Channel contacts me and wants a promo, $250 to $300 is a very common number. It's also very popular now for them to try to rent one of us for 30 minutes or for an hour, and for that block, pay $500 or so for that. Corporate non-broadcast explainers, like a 1 to 2 minute explainer video, averaged $292. And I've talked to a number of people that do a lot of this work, and they have pretty nice relationships with 2 or 3 of the companies that do a lot of this. They may do it for $150 or $200 if that company is sending them 2 and 3 spots a week. But $250 to $300 is a pretty nice number. And again, this is an explainer video for a company that you may have never heard of. If Intel comes to you and says, hey, we want you to do our anthem spot that we're going to put on Intel.com. It's also going to be featured at CES. It's going to be featured here and there. Don't do that for $292. A 3 to 5 minute corporate video that could be something internal. It could have some web exposure, $425. I think $400 to $500 is a great number. E-learning rates. I try to quote $1,500 per finished hour. $1,188 was the average that came in. There's some people that are upwards of $1,600 and $1,800 per finished hour. There's some people that are very comfortable at $800 to $1,000 per finished hour. You can see all the responses, through here. I mean, look at this. Somebody quoted $200 per finished hour for e-learning. I would, if I was trying to massage the data, I would throw out these three bottom numbers because I think those are unrealistic numbers.
Now, Sean, can I just ask you on the e-learning, is the finished hour, is that you are doing your own editing?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
You're potentially, you're editing out any mistakes. If you're a heavy breather, you might be deep breathing. Other than that, not too much else. But if you're supplying them with 60 minutes of audio, $1,200, $1,500 is a very fair rate. And, and then you just do the math. If it's 45, so $1,500, if you divide by 60 is $25 per minute. So take the $25, and if it's a 45-minute piece, bing, $1,125. So common values were between $1,000 and $2,000 per finished hour. The per minute average was 22. Many people are at $25. Consider a minimum floor. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have a four-minute e-learning piece, that's not going to be 4 times $20. You're not going to do that for $100. You're going to have a floor of a few $100s. Apps and video games, I've played in that arena just a little bit. Some of you I know have done a lot more. Apps averaged $341, so $300 to $500. Again, it depends on, do they want to rent you for a couple hours? Do they want you to read a page or two of stuff? Is it a 12-page deal? If it's a huge number of pages, don't do it for $350. That should be a lot more money than that. Some people quoted a project rate, sometimes a session rate. $425 an hour was pretty common. $600 for a 4-hour session. These are just different people's comments in terms of how they stagger their rates. Phone prompt and IVR work. These are just, again, ideas on how people work. $150 for a session fee, $1 per prompt. $200, $150 minimum per page. On-hold messaging, you can see some of those there. Audiobooks. $200 to $300 per finished hour was common. $400 is kind of the max for, unless you're a superstar and they have to have you. $200 to $300 per finished hour is pretty common. There are people that do $100 per finished hour in a hybrid agreement that'll take some royalties. $225 per finished hour with union contributions on top. Go ahead. Somebody wanted to say something. I thought. All right, I'm talking too much. I hope I'm not sounding like
you're doing great, Sean.
Not at all.
A car auctioneer. All right, so keep in mind, these were some points that I said afterwards. Many pros discount from these rates with a long-term agreement, consistent work, or a large quantity of work from a client. For instance, there's a network cable channel that I do a ton of promos for every month. And initially they came to me and we had a rate of $300 per promo. And pretty soon after they had about 8 of those in a week, and I sent them a bill for $2,400, they said, hey, let's talk about a retainer. And so the retainer for that cable channel got them a much lower per price rate, but they send me a few $1,000s every single month. So there are people that do that. Learning how to ask for a professional rate is one key to being a professional voiceover talent. And I recounted the story when somebody came to me and they wanted me to voice 30 spots that were going to have a bunch of tags. And I'm sitting down doing the math. And it's going to come out to like a $12,000 deal. And in my early years, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. I should, geez, this really just seems like it should be $3,000. So I said, well, under my normal rates, it would be $18,000. I can probably do this for like $16,500. And then I just was quiet. And then like a few seconds later, that sounds good, thanks. So learning how to ask for that professional rate, to understand that they're not paying for an hour of your time, they're paying for your last 10, 20, 30 years of experience and expertise to be their voiceover talent and to help sell or convince people whatever they're trying to do. So to be comfortable with your talent and to know that you're good enough. And if there's people that are new to the business within 3 or 4 or 5 years, well, so instead of spending money on more demos, or instead of spending money trying to do marketing pieces, maybe you should spend a few $100s or a few $1,000s on some training so that you're up in the upper echelon of people that are competing for these higher rates. Some people say, well, I'm just starting out. How could I ever charge that? I should only charge a tenth of that. No, I think people that are starting out should still be in the professional rate area if they intend to be a professional voiceover talent. You're going to have to fake it for a while and convince people that you're a professional, but don't screw yourself with low rates, because guess what? Those people tell their friends, and their friends tell their friends that you're a great talent and you work for crap rates.
Sean, a wonderful presentation. I'm interested to hear what others have to say. Anybody have an initial response?
I would love to hear from Bob Bergen just in terms of his take on the rates that were just discussed versus the rates he knows where we're at with the union.
Well, I'm a hard one to be a part of this, because even if you're paid union scale for the job, that still undercuts, because we don't work union scale just for the day rate. We work union scale for the P&H and the residuals and everything that comes with it. So it's not that the money you're paid to do the job. It's the additional money that we call a voiceover career. We call being a professional voiceover actor. So you've got retirement at 65. You've got health benefits throughout the year. You've got residuals when it's slow. So it really doesn't matter to us what non-union day rates are. It matters that by not doing it union, it's still undercutting the professional voiceover actor, and it's diluting the possibility of ever getting a top agent in union work, because agents don't take on actors the way they used to, because 60% of the work or more has gone non-union. They can't afford to take on non-union talent. But based on what I'm hearing in this conversation, these actors, either enough time has gone by with this current generation of voiceover that they don't really understand, relate to, or care about the benefits and the residuals, or even getting a top agent. They're doing just fine without. So to be honest, this is a good education for the people at the union to know what's happening outside their backyard.
So Bob, would you say that a person can be a voiceover professional without being in the union?
I can't. To be quite honest, I don't know, because I've never related to it. I've never done it myself, and it's not my world. So I don't know.
JMC?
I'm not the person to ask.
Well, naturally, I'm going to take that. And, there are a lot of non-union talent out there. I'm one of them. I've been doing this full-time for 20 years. I'd like to think I make a fair living doing this. I know quite a few other people who can say the same thing. As you said, Bob, 60% or more, and I think the number is more, of the work out there now is non-union work. And it is simply a transition that's occurring, not because the generation's abandoning the union. Look, if I were in Los Angeles, I'd be SAG-AFTRA. I don't think there are any two ways about that. But I'm not, and I don't really want to be in Los Angeles. A lot of people I know are in that same boat. The technology that we have access to today, the availability of work in fields that weren't there before, web videos, new media, which is one thing Sean talked about and something that we're going to discuss, I think, a lot today in terms of where rates should be going with that. The market is expanding. There's more work out there than there's ever been. And I agree. And there's more work than there is quality talent to do it. And, it's not a question of, in my opinion, right or wrong, union or non-union. I think the union's got great benefits it offers to talent who play in that pool. Like you said, pension and health, that's a fantastic thing. And some of the protections that they offer, especially at the high end of the scale with large national work, I think that's very, very valuable. At the same time, we look at the rates that Sean put up there for e-learning, for instance, which is a very core part of my business, okay? And my e-learning rates are 10 to 20 cents per word. I have a team of editors that work for me doing that editing for $20 to $25 an hour, which means that I'm clearing $1,000 to $2,000 per hour of non-broadcast seat time. When I turn and I look at the SAG-AFTRA rates, which I have right next to me here for corporate, educational, and non-broadcast, it's $401 for the first hour and $117 for each additional 30 minutes.
I agree with you.
I could live on that.
Yep.
Peter, would you like to chime in here? What's your take on whether a person can be a voiceover professional and not be in the union?
Well, my position is I am a union member, but have only been so for a short length of time. So most of my career was non-union. I'm now union. I do have a couple of comments on the stuff that's been said. First of all, I always find if someone wants to be to present the same price to a producer as a non-union person, as the union would be, I generally tell people just add 25% to what you see on the union rates, because that covers P&H, payroll taxes. So if something says $400, just call it $500, and then you're making a competitive bid. And because of course, as a non-union person, you're paying for your own pension, retirement, and health. So if you just take the number on the rate sheet and offer that, that's a low rate. You can go higher than that to be compatible with union. I think there's a lot of work out there for non-union people. There's a lot of stuff that isn't under any union jurisdiction as well. And of course, work can be converted if it falls under certain parameters. I'm in New York, so I do have access to more union work than someone who may live in the middle of the country. I'm an hour away from the city. I can get myself into a studio when called. So yes, the union, the LA, the Chicago, and the New York argument is very strong for the union, but for people outside of those areas, there is certainly a living to be made. E-learning rates were mentioned. I find that's something where people are tempted, and the biggest problem is people tend to think of long-form narration as a single entity and push it down to audiobooks, which can be as low as like 3 to 5 cents a word, which is what Sean's figures highlighted with the $300 a finished hour for e-learning. My rates for e-learning are well up there, $1,500, $1,800.
Yep. Mine too.
And people are paying that quite happily. So it's all about the education of the new people in the business. It's long-form narration. It's not audiobook rate. E-learning, my basic is 25 cents a word. And obviously we get into degressivity once you get over half an hour and that sort of thing. I think there's plenty of work out there for everyone. The problem is that we need to educate the non-union people that they shouldn't sell themselves short, and also educate new people exactly the point that's been made, that if you start low, increasing is difficult. I did want to come back to one point that was mentioned at the outset. When do you know to raise your rates? Quite simply, if every bid you're putting out there is being accepted, your rates are too low. Jack them up until you get some kickback and some intense negotiation, even losing some gigs. But if everyone is accepting every bid you put out there, you've got to bid more.
Can I chime in for a second? Can I chime in for a second?
You bet, Bob.
Okay, I got 2 points. Number one, I want Peter's voice. I just want to turn a knob and have that voice and just walk into my booth, because I could just hear you read the phone book. That was awesome.
You should see what happens when Peter walks into a bar.
Oh, there you go.
How about if Peter and Porky walk into a bar?
The other thing I want to say is that I think that you guys should consider doing one of these where you've got us as well as union people, but not just union people, but people from the board, people from the Voiceover committee.
We have tried
to get union reps. They just weren't able to be here, but that'll happen.
Okay, because I think that they need to hear all this, because this is a foreign language to them. And let me be really, I'll be really honest with you guys. I'm playing completely devil's advocate here. I know the answer to all these questions. I know the money people are making, but the bottom line is the union just they're not aware of any of this, or they're just not interested. But the bottom line is 60 to 75% of this work has now gone non-union. This is important stuff.
Yes.
Randy, you no longer live in LA. Is that correct? You're still living in Florida?
Correct. I left Los Angeles in 2003, and I've been living on the Gulf Coast of Florida.
But you're a union.
I am a union player. I came here, you know, they talk about the 4 stages of your career. Who's Randy Thomas? Get Randy Thomas. Get me a young Randy Thomas. So when I left LA, I left during the Get Randy Thomas stage. And for me, that meant coming to Florida and realizing that I wasn't even close to LA, that a good deal of the work, especially being a live announcer, came to me because I was in town. I was there. Hey, Randy, can you run over here? We've got this show we're working on. We'd love your voice on it. So that's changed a little bit. They've grown since 2003, realizing that they can get me to work for them, whether they have ISDN or not. I make it very easy to be directed over the phone. But an interesting thing happened when I left Los Angeles and came here. My career kicked into high gear. Entertainment Tonight didn't really want me in Los Angeles because they start their day recording at 7 a.m. That's 10 o'clock here. If you're an LA talent and someone calls you for a 7 a.m. call, it's really difficult. So I've already had a chance to exercise and, work out and get my voice where it needed to be for the day. So it worked for me for many years. My contract with ET has expired and they haven't picked it up because that's the way the business is going. They will use me when they want me, but they no longer want to pay that weekly contract. The business has changed. So I came here and I was very blessed to have an incredible career. I almost really didn't miss a beat by leaving LA. It just allowed me, in fact, I would visit LA, and I think the key to being an LA talent is never change your cell phone number. People call me on my 818, they think I'm still there, and that works for me. And but just speaking, and I'm not as nearly as informed about rates as Bob is, probably Joyce and whatnot, and J. Michael. I always say that if you want to have a career in voiceover, you don't have to be union. But if you want to have a first-class career in voiceover, you do have to be a union player because that's where the buyers have been going. Now, I've watched this change in the last few years. And that is what's sad. And I must say that J. Michael is one of the very few people that I know of that is non-union that really has established this first-class career. And so he gets to dictate his own rates. It's almost like I feel that when you get to a certain point in your ability to earn money as a voiceover artist, you should join the union because the avenues that it will open up for you, because you're already great, but then the avenues and the ability to have a franchised agent and be available for the major network gigs that I am attracted to, that I hope to can continue to book, they only really come about through being a union talent. Yes, J. Michael.
Well, I think Ann had her hand up first.
I was just talking about the network. I wanted to kind of shift the conversation over to the networks. Like, where are the networks broadcasting now that everything's going to digital media? That was part of our conversation, in our last roundtable. And so really, I think maybe Joyce might be able to talk to us a little bit about that and where you see, networks and digital media going and rates.
I'm not I'm not as clear of where everything is going right now. The rates are shifting because they're online as opposed to network. But there's a lot happening right now, which I know Randy is probably and Bob are very aware of how things are changing. There's a major shift in, cable. All the networks all own all the cable stuff, so they're they cross promote. So there's a lot of stuff going with that, and the internet is changing the way a lot of them are presenting their material. But there are more shifts coming that I'm looking into now because of the Netflix and the DirecTV doing their own material, and they're not union, I'm sure,
right.
But for promo again is another animal that is not really relegated by the union.
Right.
And that happened a long time ago when cable was coming on and, it's not going to last. So they didn't go to capture anybody. So promo is the one area that the LA agents, the New York, the union agents can work with, even if it's not a no union issue. But there's a lot more information that I'm working on to try to find out where where it's going now, because it will be making a shift. Networks are changing completely.
Cable cutting is really affecting the market, the digital streams of media now. J. Michael, you keep raising your hand. What's up?
Well, that's what I want to get into. It's one of the things that Randy mentioned, the concept of a first-class career. I think the definition of that is changing because of the way media is changing. We're in an era, we have a generation that's coming up that is entirely disposed against being advertised to. The concept of commercials are anathema to millennials and to young people. I don't think we even have TiVo anymore. They DVR them. They go through Netflix. They go through Amazon Prime. They go through Hulu. If you have a pre-roll on YouTube, as soon as you can click, close this ad, you close this ad. Nobody wants to watch this stuff anymore. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons that we are seeing a tremendous, I don't think there's a better word for it, collapse in commercial rates especially. I don't see that same collapse in narration, whether it's long form or short form. I don't see it in the middle of the market. If anything, that market's growing and rates are holding steady or even getting better. But I think the future of this business, a first-class career, is going to be a different definition. It's not going to be commercial and promo. It's going to be the real stars, in my opinion, 5 or 10 years from now, are going to be video game actors, animation actors, maybe anime actors, character people, and the other people who are having a first-class career and doing it maybe under the radar will be long-form e-learning narrators, corporate narrators, and web narrators. That's where the business is going. If I were getting into the business today, I would not have a tremendous interest in doing commercial work as a first resort.
What about you, MJ? You're in this area.
There's so much coming out of, on Netflix. Mommy, I'm a Zombie. I did Daddy, I'm a Zombie cast directed. Did it. My studio did voices, and their rates when they came back to me, then that rate goes up. But the truth of the matter is, Spain. I'm going to be doing something out of China. They don't care about our union. I mean, you have to just sit there and say, you said you wanted a star in this. Do you realize you can't have one star that's union and then the rest aren't? So they don't understand the rules or anything. So I think it becomes kind of educating people about that. And then also going out to people that and saying, is this something? I've actually just said, I know your union. Do you want to do these 52 episodes? Tell me what you want. It's not, we don't know if it'll come back. This is the other thing. But how can we pay you? We don't know where it'll go. I mean, they don't. I mean, Disney's not going to take it. Where is it going to end up? I mean, we're lucky it ended up on Netflix. So you have a lot of, we don't know. We don't have, everything's kind of vague in it. But I do just start with, what do you think? And then I can go back to them and say, you have this really excellent cast, and this is what they want. And that works better than, MJ said, I just say, I'm going to go to people that are top notch because you said this is what you want, but you can't do union. You don't want to do, they don't have the kind of economy. I mean, they'll look at something like, oh my God, that's, this episode will only take this person 6 minutes. They've got 4 lines. We're going, well, that's not the way it is here. But I really felt that everything began to change in 2005 because I gave a little thing here on marketing, and that's when all some of the .com voices this, voices that, voices 1, 2, 3, blah 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 blah. Because then what was great was a lot of students that I had said, oh my God, there's a chance for me to do something. And people wanted to make a living doing that, but of course the rates were here. They're very vague. And I'm not picking that up. There's a lot of different ones now that are unbelievable. That I look at because my client, my student will say, "Hey, I got on this, and they're saying that. Gosh, MJ, what should I get?" And I go, "Well, it's TV. What TV?" Well, no, they didn't say. Well, how long? I don't know. What should I be? And they're nervous wrecks because they're bidding against they don't know what. So that's brought rates down to like, I'd like to get 500, but maybe 375. So you get people in that situation. But it's definitely a wild west out there. And I've saw some things even in music, $5. $5, and it will give you a music bed, or we'll do this or that, and then
thank you, Fiverr.
Yeah, I was just going to say, tell your students to never visit Fiverr.
Yeah,
or Odesk, or all the others.
I'd like to actually, that's, MJ, you bring up an excellent point. Like, okay, so what would, any one of you that can answer this, what would be the specifications for quoting somebody a price, territory or usage, or what are the specs? Anybody?
What you just said, it's usage.
Yep.
Where is it? It's Chicago, it's LA.
Yep, okay.
It's running 13 weeks. Well, and then these unbelievable buyout for
Right.
Well, that's what we,
crazy.
But I think what you brought up is actually really important. Educating the people that are making these, asking for things, they need to know the questions to ask.
Right.
They need to know how long it's running, where is it running, what is it running on. You can't make a judgment on a rate if you don't know where it's going. If it's forever, you're gonna give them a price that's gonna take you out of that area is it going to be a conflict? You have to know questions. If you don't have the questions to ask,
right?
So a lot of this, where it comes to rates, has to be education of the talent.
That's why we're here.
Yep.
Well, right, but that's what I mean. This is all about educating and re-educating those that, and the training. Sean, you said what you said just like boggled my mind. I was so happy to hear. Instead of producing a demo, get your credentials together. Get your training. If you don't have training, what good is a demo? Because you can't do anything. You don't know what you're doing.
And get training in business negotiation too.
Well,
that's what I say.
Joyce
mentions about the buyouts and the conflicts, and then we have things like YouTube pre-rolls. That's just a new frontier that no one's attached a price to yet. How many clicks do they get? If it goes viral, then do you get a better paycheck? Those things are unanswered.
Right. And that's a big thing. Every time they come up with another way of getting your voice on something, but they don't.
Then they switch it over to something else.
Right, and they don't have an idea of what it's doing or where it's going, and they don't care. They just want your voice, and they'll pay you $5, and then we have it, it's in perpetuity.
Yes,
really?
It
shows up in other places.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's pretty cool that helped at one point is that I was looking at this script and that this student sent me, and I said, this is the worst. Does this guy write? I'm happy to do something for you, but I need some professional writing. Or do you want me to be the professional? You have your verb. Some of these people are writing from other countries or something, I'm assuming. And I said, just go back and say, you will write this in English like we talk here, and with the right verbs and the right, text.
Good luck with that.
As far as that, so why don't you say if something comes in and this badly written that you couldn't sell it in America, I will help you sell it for another $300.
Randy?
Well, it seems to me that the unfortunate part is, and the reason that we are union actors is that we have this whole region of people that step in between us and the buyer to make sure that everything is as it should be. And then should we find out differently, then they're able to approach it and go and get more money. I think the onus here on the talent to not only know what to ask for, to when you talk about minimum 13-week use, I mean, that's a union thing. But are you guys that are non-union talent really able to track how and when things are being used? It seems that a lot of the boards that I see online are, hey, I did this, they paid me X, and now I see that it's on blah, blah. And so there's a lot of, and we can't trust that these buyers are telling us the truth. You're not a franchised agent, or...
But can you tell that union or not? I mean, if it comes to your agent, I mean...
Union, they do have people to check it out.
They do.
That are on constant.
And they have teeth.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But even when I've done different union work, and I very small percentage of my work is union, but when I've done it, I have had instances where something is run outside of the original agreed to category, agreement that didn't generate a check, and you have to check, hey, I'm hearing this spot different places that shouldn't be, so that happens there too. But
were you able to go after them though? Because like Randy said, when I was an agent, that was one of the things. If it came up, You know, and I know many other people, other talent who have said, you know, oh, I didn't do it for this one, but I heard it over here. But the agent went after that
Yes.
and
Yep.
got the money taken care of. But if you don't have anybody as
It's
your
still-
advocate, that's
yeah.
the problem.
It's still up to the talent, though, Joyce. What you're saying is I'm saying is the talent still has to be listening and be aware if their spot is playing somewhere else, and then they inform the agent. So it's not always the agent, you know,
There we are.
checking up every single day. Is that true? Or, you know, that's my question.
No, they can't. They won't necessarily
They won't.
know. But
Mhm.
but
Right.
if somebody approaches, if somebody has an
Yes.
issue and
Yes.
knows, they have somebody
We
to
have
go.
to
So you go to
advocate.
the union
Mhm.
to advocate. You know, the issue. If somebody's not paying, they will go after them.
Mhm.
You know,
And
here you go after them, and they're like, yeah, well, maybe not. It's a tough one. I mean,
Mhm.
and because
We still have to be advocates of our own.
right.
J. Michael.
And what Ann and Joyce just said, non-union talent need to have backbone, and you need to get things in writing.
Spine.
Okay? You have to have spine. I have chased clients to the end of the earth, whether it's been for usage or for, you know, an invoice that's 30 days past due. And I always joke, sometimes I post on Facebook a picture of Tony Soprano on the first Monday of the month, you know, saying, hey, I'm going to send Polly walnuts and I'm going to send you know, to collect. But you have to have that mentality a little bit. You have to be your own advocate if you are not union. And look, you know, I have nothing but respect for the people who are out there on the coast working with the union. It is one of the great functions that the union provides for talent is the ability to work on your behalf when situations like these arise. If you are non-union, like I am, you have to be your own collection agency and your own you know, back cover, and it's up to you.
I want to shift the conversation just a little bit because somebody brought up pay-to-plays, or at least online subscription services, whatever you want to call them. They have changed the nature of the voice seeker, voice talent process, coming together online, seeing jobs listed, bidding for jobs. I think Peter Bishop would agree with me. We on WoVO are upset about that bidding process because it makes the voice talent a commodity. And I know JMC has some comments about this too. Peter, how has the pay-to-plays affected the market?
I think, well, there's two different ways they operate. One of the main ones operates solely as a middleman, but it's still pitting people against each other. It's not so much competing on talent or whether you're the right person for the job. Are you the right person for the job, and are you cheap? I think that devalues what we do. Now, there will always be someone that just wants, Joe the plumber wants a nice message on hold, and he's got $50 in his pocket. Fine. I'm not chasing that work. That work's not chasing me. And maybe he wants someone better than his brother-in-law speaking about it. So there's a place for this. But when those $50 rates, I'm exaggerating, $100 rates, come up for what would normally be a $600-700 gig if it was going out into the normal competitive market. And when there are 100 people competing for it at $100, and there's someone in there that's good enough, or even someone who should be charging more, thinking, it's like $100, it's curry money, or whatever, that damages everyone, because it's training the clients that they can get either good or acceptable quality for bargain basement prices. And I think to a great extent, we've created this problem ourselves. Collectively, full-time VOs branch out into the business areas. We are in the business of, a lot of us, of bringing new talent in, of encouraging new talent. And when we're bringing them on board, but we're not hammering into their heads that they've got to charge the going rates. There's a glamour. It's show business. People love this stuff. Oh, I'm a voice actor. As, depending on whose reports you read, 100,000 people say they are. One $50 job that was really worth $1,500, yeah, they get bragging rights to it, but it damages the industry, and I don't think they actually understand this.
Right.
And it's our job to educate them that you've got to charge what the market rate is, what you're worth, This isn't pin money, because every time you're earning pin money, you're taking away money from someone who's trying to earn a living doing this. It's like I always refer to plumbers. Plumbers are wonderful people. They earn more than me. I can either go and spend $250, $500 getting the job done properly, or I can go and find a kid that knows how to use a blowtorch and pay him $25. And then when I'm clearing up the ruined carpets 6 months later because the basement's flooded, whose fault is it?
Right. You want quality or quantity? That's basically what you're asking.
I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot quite a lot by encouraging a lot of people to come in and not telling them what they should be charging.
MJ, you had your hand up first.
No, I was going to say that when it got to be that trend of, oh gosh, you know, I'm a PC, I'm a Mac, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And they're both really good actors. But, you know, it was very kind of conversational. That really, I saw that as starting this whole new trend, just kind of, don't sell, I don't need an announcer. That whole thing, I mean, almost everything I get now, I feel like is, if I'm going to try for commercial, is don't sell it. And then you hear a lot of things and you think, well, when it did come down to, hey, I'm just going to be myself. Hey, why don't you go out to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee? It's like, so what happened when we went to don't sell me, just be your regular person, I think that's when people said, hey, I can make a living at this. I don't have to act. I'm not an announcer. I don't have to take a class. And there you go. So that was one thing you know, that kind of, I shouldn't say dumbed it down. Some of those people are good voices, but that was, I thought, wow, this is going to take it.
Randy, you had a comment.
Well, I just, you know, when you talk about so many people competing for that one really low paying job because the job has some sort of, you know, a shine to it. There's a notoriety, if it's a name brand or something, that you take nothing so that you can say that you did that spot. The problem, I think, for most of these jobs that are offered at a very low rate is they really don't hear the difference. You know, we're talking about, like MJ said, we're doing this non-sell thing, which, by the way, I've had to change my read. My read is no longer, you know, on the next entertainment, you know, it's now Death Row Stories tonight on CNN. You know, change the way we're promoting things, and we as professionals have to stay on the cutting edge of what the buyers want.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's driven by the market. I mean, you know, advertising.
Yeah, what's working today will be different 3 years from today too.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing or hearing reports of agents putting union jobs on these pay-to-play sites.
Yes.
Is that desperation on the agency's part?
They're not giving union rates? You mean they're putting a union job on it, but it's not a
Well,
union?
they may be putting it on union rates, but then the pay-to-play organizers are taking a good bit of that profit and then reposting the job at a lower rate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy!
Well, yeah, we've seen a couple of occurrences of that.
I'm confused. How does that
happen?
happen?
Needs to get behind that. That's totally.
Yeah, I don't understand how that happens.
This is something that
It has happened.
This is something we've seen some reports of recently.
I think a couple and some are gross understatements. It's happening all the time.
Yes.
And
Is it non-union agents or union agents that are putting something on?
If it says union, you can't give the person under a union rate. I mean,
Right.
this is a union, you know, job.
Well, do you want to get into the topic of union people posing as non-union talent?
Yeah.
That happens too.
I have to say, I don't see a lot of union work, at least not being listed as union, being posted on online casting sites. I'm on the two big ones every single day, and I see just about every job that comes through. I don't see much that's labeled as union. So if they're doing it, they may be labeling it as non-union or telling the sites to put it up under non-union.
Bob, you've been kind of quiet lately. What do you have to say?
I'm just sort of taking it all in because, you know, the thing is, everything you guys are saying, everything you guys are concerned about and even complaining about, you know, the undercutting, the taking the $50, the unfairness of it all, it's all relative. This whole trend for the last 15, 20 years of, we could talk for days. To me, it was the perfect storm. The perfect storm was the commercial strike that coincided with the launch of Voice 1, 2, 3.
Boom.
And that perfect storm, we had buyers who needed talent. We had talent that had opportunity. And 15 years later, I got to tell you guys, when I got in the business, non-union did mean not so good, not as talented, can't get an agent, really can't make a living at this.
Right.
And the buyers wanted the best of the best. Non-union no longer means not talented.
Right.
And what we've done is we have created this industry of non-union voiceover. Now, I don't care how much money you're getting in a non-union job. I don't care if you're getting 20 times scale. You are still undercutting the professional union voiceover actor. No matter how you slice it, you're cutting into consider us plumbers. You're cutting into our livelihood. You're cutting into what we have counted on for retirement, for pension and health benefits, et cetera. And it's all relative. No matter how you look at it, if one group finds it unfair, another group's going to find it unfair. But the bottom line is, if you're not going to do it for $100, somebody will.
Well, that's where I think it has to have people have to have the actual starting point that they can't. They've got to all stick together. It's like the whole thing with the.
But you'll never get that. You'll never get that. You'll never get that. You'll never get that. You'll never get that because if everybody today decides we're going to do that, tomorrow you got 500 brand new people saying it's just one job. It's just me. I just need experience. $50 is a lot of money for me. It's just not going to happen.
And if we think that way, we'll never make an impact.
Right.
I think one of the myths and misperceptions that we deal with in this business is that the sky is falling, that there's too many talent out there that are willing to do good work for cheap prices. I don't know if anybody here has ever actually tried to cast a job off of one of the online casting sites. What I can tell you is that 80% of the auditions you'll hear on there are not viable.
Right.
And I've had agents let me listen into certain things that have been submitted to their rosters before that are also not viable. There are not that many people out there who can actually do this job very, very, very well. And for those of us who can, we need that education that we've talking about. I do think, organizations like WoVO should be talking about a set minimum for any work, for turning on the microphone that is an industry standard that, if you're a member of the organization, you should try to abide by. And if you're not, it's something we should educate people on. But the sky isn't falling. There is more work out there than there is quality talent to do it. Where the sky is falling is in the commercial side of things, because people involved in the production of these commercials know that, number one, that talent pool has grown because it's not just LA and New York anymore. And they also know that that side of the industry is undergoing a transformation, and they're trying to change the nature of the pricing structure because they understand that maybe the way it is at the moment is unsustainable. In the middle, though, e-learning, corporate narration, web narration, when you get into, performance with video games and animation and things like that, there is room not just to hold the line, but to push the rates higher. Yeah. All it requires is that education and that backbone, union or non-union.
Sean, you had your hand up a minute ago.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I have been on the other side of it. I have a friend that casts in different voices from time to time. And I said, I would love to see what it's like on your side. And so I saw what it looked like when you worked through an agent, and I saw that, in that case, maybe 60 to 70% of the people that came in were good and passable, and yet he occasionally would work through one of the pay-to-plays, and I heard some trash, some horrible, horrible work, like there's this horrible buzz, and it sounds like he's 14 feet from the microphone, and guys that talk with, speech impediments, and it was the 10 to 20% of the people that were passable, and yet I'm thinking, if I was one of those talents, and it's a job that should pay $600 and the offering is $200, I'm going to audition, and in the notes I'm going to say, but the minimum I would accept is $600. And if enough people would do that, these clients can get educated, because some of them, let's be honest, some of them are 25-year-old kids that are brand new into the business, and they have no idea what rates have been, what rates should be for professionals. And if 2 or 3 or 10 or 40% of the people reply back, your rate's not acceptable. This is not, but if you could get to this point, then some of us are willing to do it. And if they heard that from the people that they really liked, they'd realize, this is not a $200 gig. This is a $700 gig. If we do that, we'll get some great talent.
All right, Randy, and then Peter.
Well, I just wanted to say, I was listening to what Michael said and how J. Michaels gets X amount overscale or way beyond. I mean, this is an area that I'm comfortable with in terms of being a union talent, taking a non-union job and then just putting it through a payroll company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
Yep.
think that's the answer for
Right.
union players
Sure.
is to jump into the same arena that all the non-union talent are playing in and add those notes when you're auditioning, because a lot of times it doesn't allow you to put the rate you really want because it's above their parameter and then it doesn't register. So you put it in the notes section. And that way I think union talent can really stay competitive in this P2P world. I would like to see some sort of a P2P site that, and maybe WoVO should be it, that is attracting the best of the best, and let them and the union players play in the same
Funny you should
sandbox.
say that.
Dave?
Have that.
Dave?
Want to take that one? He's my vice president.
WoVO professional members have access to voiceover.biz. Only professional members, not associates. These are people with a track record of a number of jobs at fair rate. And it's not P2P, it's FTP, free to play. Mm-hmm. It's a service. No one's making money out of this. It's a service to our pro members. And we're putting it out there as strongly as we can to buyers, those people with checkbooks, that this is where they can come for one-stop shopping. Be it union or non-union, these people are professionals. You're not having to dig through the hopefuls with a USB mic in a tiled bathroom. So we do have this, and we're in the process of rolling it out and it's all about awareness and getting it in front of as many people as possible, because we have hundreds of, I'm reluctant to use the word certified, but hundreds of professional voices on there. It has other connotations as well, but we're getting there as well.
Established.
Yeah, established, who have a certain body of work behind them at professional rates. So you don't have to dig through everything else. So one-stop shopping for pro talent.
Joyce?
I was also concerned, like Bob, I know your point is well taken as far as the professionalism of the talent with the union and having all that, what my question is, how do you get, you have so much of the product out there going for non-union jobs. They're being put out as non-union jobs. So what is the union able to do to go capture more of that? Because it's not, at this point, the professional non-union actors are obviously good enough to get agents if the agencies had more work, but because
we lost her.
Oh, one of the agents heard about it, cut her fiber.
That's it.
Oh, there she
is.
But you know what I'm saying? So I understand the concern about the talent taking away from the union,
Mm-hmm.
Expertise, but and jobs. But if the union is the union going after a lot of these clients to turn them union? That's what I'm trying to figure out. There's obviously a lapse between the two.
For many professional voice talent who are not union, they tell me they don't have a compelling reason to join the union, that the union seems ineffective or uncaring about voice talent. It's hard to convince them that the union really cares about voice talent. Yes, there's a rate sheet, but do they really actively represent voice talent? It seems like the redheaded stepchild of the creative industry.
Well, that's why, Randy, you and Bob would really have a better sense.
They are extremely out of touch with the realities and trends, not just in voice acting, but in technology and entertainment, period. That's why they need to hear more from you guys than you need to hear from them. The word incentives is something I've been trying to say to the powers that be. These people have no incentive to spend $3,000 to join. These people have no incentives to give up thriving non-union careers to honor Global Rule 1 and never work non-union.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is they're saying the incentive is you're a professional actor. You do what actors have done for the last 500 years. You wait tables. You have 20, 30 day jobs and night jobs, and you pursue professional acting professionally. Well, today's generation of voiceover doesn't relate to the life of a professional actor as it was only 15, 20 years ago, which included voiceover. So what do we do about this? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I don't think that the current generation necessarily sees the need for a period of self-deprivation before they find success. I've coached non-union voice actors, who have gone in 1 to 2 years into six-figure incomes as non-union voice talent. Is that the likeliest outcome for most people who get into the business? Of course not. 99% of people are going to fail non-union or union. But people these days, if they have the talent, it seems like, I think what happens is there's a perception of the Los Angeles union marketplace and being very cliquish, being very difficult to access for someone who doesn't have a natural entry point into it or the connections to succeed. And people are seeing, whether it's through online casting, through self-generated work, or through non-union agents, people are seeing people develop very, very successful careers. And again, we're talking about real money here. Maybe we're not talking about the seven-figure and super high six-figure numbers that some union talent still make and certainly used to make. But we're talking about healthy low six-figure incomes. That's very, very attainable as a non-union talent, even within a year or 2 or 3 years of getting into the business, if you have the chops and if you have the business skills to work 60-hour weeks like a donkey until you get there.
Yeah.
Peter?
Yeah, that was actually the point I was going to make before. A conversation I've had with a couple of newcomers, aspiring newcomers, is this a hobby or is this a full-time job? Do you want a career? Now, depending on where you are in the country, you've got to make between 50 and 100,000 plus. Are you going to make that on $50 jobs, $100 jobs? My income target is obviously a couple of grand a week. It's $500 a day. You're not going to get 10 $50 jobs or 5 $100 jobs a day.
Correct.
So you have to aim for one $500 job or maybe one $2,000 job a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's a far better business plan, and it's a career that you're building. If you're chasing $100 jobs, you are never, ever going to make a living, despite how some people extol the virtues of Fiverr and how they make a killing and they're working 24/7.
Amen. Well, one of the a corollary point to that, Peter, is the people who are working $50 or $100 jobs. One of the reasons I'm not concerned about them terribly is because they're going to burn out very, very quickly. It's going to be a short fuse after 6 months or a year of doing that and realizing they're making $2,000 a month. They're done. They're gone, and that's someone who is no longer competition for me if they were in the first place. They're gone. I'm not concerned about people selling for $50 a pop. What I'm concerned about are people who are doing nationals for $400.
Right.
And we're about at an hour, and in the interest of being fair to everybody's time and the promise of keeping this to an hour, I'd like to bring this to a close, unless someone has a burning desire or a point they'd really like to make before we end.
Well, one thing I'd just like to say is when students are, ask me what to do, I said, what'd you spend on your education?
Mm-hmm.
And when they start looking at it, it's an intro class, it's a beginning, it's an intermediate, it's advanced class, it's this person's workshop, that. It's like, to cover that, you gotta start thinking about when somebody comes to you and says, hey, how about I'm going to give you this? Say, well, I've got basically a Yale degree in voiceover, so it's got to be this.
Yeah, exactly.
Anne, you want to close this up?
Think of us as educators.
Well,
I mean, we're just natural voice. A lot of people think actors just standing there and they don't think they went to classes.
It's just talking, right? Yeah.
It's stuff.
Exactly.
Well, I'd have to thank you so much, everybody, for your time today. It's just been
very good.
It's been an education, and I'm really happy to be a part of this. I'm proud to be working with Dave and World Voices organization, and so if we can continue to provide education, we can do what we can do. And
we're going to plaster this everywhere we can, and we hope we have your permission for that. Look for it online within 24 hours.
I love
Excellent.
So thank you.
And guys, I think we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Right.
Bob, thanks so much for stopping in.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All of
Thank
you.
you guys for doing this.
Wonderful contributions from everybody.
And we'll be back next month with more information and more.
Can we do it with cocktails next time?
Sure. Yeah. I'll bring my tuxedo.
We'll all meet in Las Vegas.
Oh, I like that. There we go.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
everybody.
Have a great rest of your day.